A studio is just crucial for an artist. And I noticed when I left university that the artists who got studios very soon after leaving university and leaving the facilities of the university tended, looking around me now, they seem to still have practices. It's very, very hard to maintain a practice if you don't have a separate space for that practice. It's very hard to have a practice if you don't treat it to some extent like a business that has income and expenses. Artists need space in which to not just make but also think. So usually my studios have always been away from my home, or for many years now they've been away from my home because I really, really needed that separation. And because most people, like, it's important to go to work and then to come home from work. But since I've had a child, I've found it really important to have my studio close to home. So this studio is underneath the house, or the bottom layer of the house. It's because my daughter is 2.5, it's just been incredibly important for me to have that, because I get to work when she has a nap, and then I get to work after she goes to bed at night. Being a parent and being an artist is a really difficult thing to manage. Art practices take up an extraordinary amount of time, and it's not usually business hours because most artists, I think the statistic is something like 5% of artists are able to live off the sale of their work alone. So usually artists have jobs as well as their studio life. If you can imagine then also making time for a child in amongst that situation, it's really tough. So it has, one of the reasons why I moved back to Brisbane is the possibility of having a studio at home or closer to home. That's why I've come to be in this particular situation with this particular configuration of studio and home. I just couldn't, I have had moments where I haven't had a studio and I'm just not myself. I just don't function. If I don't have space and time to make work, it's a requirement for me. So yeah, studio is crucial. In any given studio, there'll be an area that is reasonably clean, where I have the computer and books. And then there will be an area that is for painting, and it needs to be able to be messy. It needs to accommodate mixing paint and storing paint. I'm never using one brush, I'm usually using a bunch of brushes. I also need the area in which I make patterns too, and that needs to not be the same area where the acrylic painting takes place, because you can't, the gouaches are quite precise and they need to be, it's kind of midway between the digital area and the painting area. It needs to be like fairly neat, but not crazy neat. There's lots of different parts to the studio. And then there's a lot of storage, because I have this theory that like 80% of an art practice is moving things from one location to another. So you're either like moving materials into the studio, or you're moving work to a gallery, or you're just, there's just a lot of moving things around. I have both fear and excitement about making my process utterly transparent. I think it's very, very important to make visible what kinds of labour are involved in having an art practice. And I really enjoy practices that take artistic labour as their focus, because I think it's very important for us to demystify the figure of the artist. So to have made visible the fact that we work and we work at things, sometimes we work at them, it might be obsessive or it might be very pragmatic, but there is a great deal of work involved. I like that aspect of it, and I look forward to having people see the way that I work. And then I'm also terrified of that because you don't often show people every aspect of the way that you make, and it does leave you a little bit vulnerable in some ways. Some days my studio life is all admin. The whole day is doing really boring administrative tasks, but that's because this is a professional endeavour. and it's a business, and I need to attend to those aspects of things. And I know that's kind of dull, but people need to know that aspect of things as well.